Thank you. Okay, we got 4 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mark Dennis.
Here.
Nate Tormella.
Here.
Bonnie Good. Here. Tim Harden.
Here.
JJ Reinhardt.
Here.
John Kelly.
Okay, we're here. We have quorum. Thanks for showing up in all this cold. Approval of minutes. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at last month's meeting minutes? Any questions or changes? I think there was a typo.
Probably.
Under miscellaneous, in that first big paragraph, far right hand side, about halfway down, it says don't dugout instead of Don's dugout.
Okay.
I figured you were just seeing if we're paying attention.
I just changed that on here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. That being said, any other comments or questions? Not would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Nate.
I'll second.
And we got a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any public hearings? Old business. Brian Thompson and Colin Smith have communicated to me that they're not going to be here this month. They would prefer to wait a month to make sure they have all the information they need to present it clearly. Any new business? Reedy? Frick and Frack here together.
You got the combo too.
Yeah, first I got a couple things for you guys. First things first, I want you guys to see that the plan has been rolled over to 2026 now. So you can see in 2025 columns, year-end fund balances for all of your funds. And for 2026 projections, updated revenue projections. Now that budget orders have come out, updated revenues are in there for each of the TIF funds. And a couple of things that first will go through with you as well, but just to kind of point out, your 26 projected ending balance is a little bit higher than what it was last time. Now we're sitting at about 565,000 projected based on a couple of things that have happened recently. And your claims will be on there as usual. But if you guys don't have any questions about the rolled plan, then I'll let Frishy kind of explain some of the changes that have happened.
And some of it, has to do with the claims as well. And I think a lot of the changes that we kind of looked at were in relation to the now pushed back airport discussion. And I know I had called Mark and Nate, kind of let him in on my thoughts, but essentially, with the airport request coming in front of the RDC potentially as soon as next month, and that being a 420-ish and change $1,000 request that supposedly was approved back in 23. We kind of wanted to figure out, well, how do we tackle that? How do we get that paid? And how do we, at the same time, if we can, improve the Burkhart Drive allocation area, the main TIF funds cash balance 426. I know that's been a point of discussion over the past couple months. So really wanted to kind of take a look at all available options and see what we can do to hopefully improve this picture. So a couple things that we looked at through, looking through all the available funds. I did notice that on the last page, you'll see those RDC related bond funds. We actually have an outstanding an outstanding debt service reserve fund for a 2011 redevelopment district. Redevelopment, maybe not redevelopment district, but redevelopment bond of 2011. That bond has since been paid off, which would mean that we no longer are required to hold that debt service reserve fund. So proposing that we essentially take that cash out of that reserve fund, it's no longer needed, and shift it over to another fund. And I think our recommendation would be to shift it over to that TIF miscellaneous fund, and use the revenue, or use the funds that are in that fund right now, plus the debt service reserve transfer for the airport payment. So that would essentially take, and really I think a lot of this was discussion on what do you guys want to see? Would you rather have more at the end of 26? Would you rather have more funds in that miscellaneous fund, or would you rather have more funds in the Burkhart Drive fund? And I think, you know, with discussions with Mark and Nate, kind of sounded like we'd rather show a better cash balance in our main TIF fund as opposed to our miscellaneous fund, right? So that's why we're proposing making that airport payment, you know, based on discussions, obviously, and information from the airport next month. Make that payment out of that fund, which would bring that fund's balance at the end of the year down to roughly 190,000, still in that miscellaneous fund. So a little bit of a reserve still set aside there. But utilizing all the funds we have available to us, debt service reserve, no point in having it in that fund. Let's put that money to use and get it out of that reserve fund. So that was one suggestion, so that essentially that airport payment does not need to come out of the main TIF fund and further hurt the balance in that fund. The other suggestion, and this would kind of go with why the claims look a little different this month, would be, you know, we have the Silgan allocation area. As a reminder, that was created, I believe, in 2020 or 2019. We did a developer purchase bond, a deemed purchase bond on that allocation area, essentially saying that 50% of the revenue that we receive goes to the repayment of the bond and goes to Silgan. So that means that, you know, historically, over the past, since that area was created and that fund was created, we've just been getting revenue in, sending our 50% off for the bond payment, and then the 50% to the redevelopment commission has just been accumulating over the years. So really, it's not had any other expenditures out of that fund. So wanted to kind of see, well, that fund got it, you know, let's see, it has a, get to it. It has, at the year end, it had a $357,000 cash balance. We're projecting an additional $267,000 in 26 revenue. Like I said, 50% of that goes to the repayment of the bond. That means 50% is going to come, you know, back and build that cash balance up further. So our suggestion would be to let's start utilizing that fund for some payments and start putting that fund to work rather than just accumulating fund in there. If we could shift some expenses from our main Burkhart Drive allocation area fund and shift it over to that Silgan allocation area fund where it can pay for some expenses, that just helps out Burkhart Drive even more. So our suggestion would be, the change would be, we have shown, and this is shown in the plan, so if you guys have different thoughts, want to see it a different way, we can make the changes. But we are showing a shifting the line item in the Burkhart Drive allocation area fund, shifting the on-call engineering and the professional services line item to Silgan for 2026. Even if it's just for that 1 year, we can reconvene and see what we want to do for future years after this year. But shifting those costs for this year to Silgan frees up, you know, a good portion of funds within the Burkhart Drive allocation area, which would then, you know, kind of lead us to Cole's point of showing a projected end of year fund balance of $565,000. And I have, just so everyone's got the warm and fuzzies, I have talked with Rich Starkey. He has confirmed we are good, to utilize the debt service reserve fund now that that bond's paid off. He has confirmed, per my understanding, that the Silgan 50% that goes to the redevelopment commission is free and clear to use. Unlike Bushman, right? Bushman, we get the revenue in, we make the bond payment, but we can't touch those funds until the bond's paid off. Silgan does not function that way. We can use those revenues. And then he also confirmed that, you know, based on my explanation, that we could shift those to on-call engineering and professional services over to Silgan for 26, and that'd be acceptable use of those funds to, like I said, utilize that fund rather than for those costs.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm probably just gonna advertise my ignorance, but I'm willing to do that for the good of the whole here. On page 16,
Yes, sir.
we show 408,595 as the beginning cash balance, and that's what's coming out.
Yeah, that's
So where is that? Where do I see that coming into another fund somewhere? I thought I heard you say the miscellaneous revenue.
yeah.
But I
So
don't see it
that
in there.
actually different funds. I think that's the confusion. So that fund is an actual bond construction fund. So that's the 2019 bond construction fund. That was issued, one of the uses of that bond was O'Brien Street. So that's why we're showing, essentially, let's once again utilize all the funds we have available to us. So we're saying, let's clear out that fund for an acceptable use of those bond funds being O'Brien Street. So that's why
Okay.
that's showing cleared out. The miscellaneous fund that is page,
11.
sounds right.
Miscellaneous is on 11, but it shows 18, on page 18, that shows the series 2011 bond RDC debt service reserve.
Yep, the
fund
debt
of
service reserve.
The 169,825.
Yep. So
And
that 169,825, what we're showing on page 11, you'll see the 189,825. That's that transfer plus just a buffer of 20,000 in interest.
Thank you.
Because the miscellaneous interest in 25, there was interest in that account in 25. Minimal, which is why we only have 20 projected.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
When you're looking at transferring the engineering, on-call engineering costs and things, are you looking at transferring all of those costs regardless of what project they're connected to?
Well, I think from our review, so for 25, that cost was, what was it? 240 roughly. The bulk of those, I believe, were related to the O'Brien Street project, correct?
Okay, sure.
So the bulk of those were related to the O'Brien Street project, which is right next to that Silgan allocation area, which is why I'd say we can make the argument that engineering for that project benefits the Silgan economic development area. It wouldn't just be any engineering, right? So it would just be ones that, we're projecting, hey, if O'Brien Street comes in like it did this year, let's put that over here because that fund can pay for it.
We'll keep a close eye.
Anything else?
Are you guys good with kind of the thought process, the plan, with doing all those? Like I said, I know it's shown in
Should we
here.
approve that, I guess,
That's
with
what
the
I meant.
motion? Yep. And then have you review the minutes before we send them out next month, to make sure it's worded properly?
Yep.
Okay.
Alright, so would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Nate, thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you, Tim. Any other discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at claims? Any comments or questions? If not, would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, JJ.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other discussion? If not, all of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Miscellaneous business. Darren, are you here for miscellaneous business?
Main Street, I guess so.
Okay.
Hello, I just wanted to follow back up on Main Street's ask for this year. And if there was anything else you guys needed from Main Street, I had sent you our budget, what we had paid out. We have a little over 26,000 left to pay out for our grants for 2025 grants that they are still needing to spend for their grants that they received. And then we received the Visitor Center grant to update some streetscape projects like trash cans, flower pots downtown, which was a matching grant. So the total project was a little over 36,000. So out of the loan and grant account, we were going to spend a little over 26,000 as well for that project. So I didn't know if you guys had any other questions or needed anything else for Main Street. We do have our grants open for 2026. Those opened a couple weeks ago, and they'll be open until March 16th. So.
The My first question is from the financial standpoint. I know we've been making adjustments and improving the overall look, but do we feel like we're in a position to even consider moving forward at this time, acting on that? Or still waiting for a period before we?
To be completely honest, I don't think we know everything yet. There's still some information from the airport authority that should be coming to us in the next couple of weeks. Okay, my personal opinion.
I did have just a couple in general questions as we're looking at this. I've been kind of reviewing and going over some things, and I don't know all the guidelines. They had given us some of the grant guidelines that they required in the past. I don't know if you're making any adjustments to those as you're trying to review and come on board yourself. It seemed like we were starting to get pretty heavily in dealing with the same people on a lot of projects. And I have a concern that with that happening, that we're funding some of their agendas as opposed to utilizing the taxpayers' dollars the best to try to spread around for the overall improvement of the city and Main Street projects.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if there's been any consideration on some stipulations there. I've been told that some cities have some requirements, like they will only allow someone to get grant every other year. They can only get one at a time versus 2 or 3 different projects, whether they are primarily involved or even secondarily involved. But if the same parties are involved, that they cannot stack 2 or 3 projects and draw funds from that. So I don't know if that's been any consideration or.
Yeah, we have those guidelines as well. You can stack 2 grants together up to $50,000. And you can also only receive, depending on which grant you are applying for, those guidelines are on our website every other year for that same project. That same building, I guess, if that makes sense.
But you can get a grant for a different project.
If you have a different project.
Okay. Like I said, I know we've talked about this a little bit briefly too, but for my concerns, I know that something has to be done. I'm just not so sure that purchasing buildings and trying to handle things through the real estate side of it is the best way for us to look at a long-term Main Street projects and improvement. I think that maybe there could be some different vision to how to best utilize this and to use our funds in some better ways. I know it's not my call to direct everything or your all's goals, and that's why I'm asking if the vision stays the same since you've came on, or is there any changes in vision of what you're bringing to the table of what direction things should go and how it should be handled for the future of improving our city?
We did end up closing on 120 West 2nd Street right before Christmas, so that is no longer in Main Street's hands. So our only building is still Don's Dugout that we are trying to move forward with that process. I don't believe it is in our mission to purchase real estate. I think that those have just been special occasions that have kind of fell in our lap, and we knew that those buildings needed help, and we had the ability to do that, so we wanted to. But I don't believe that we are looking to continue to purchase real estate this year.
If you run across those same type of situations, what other courses are you looking at versus purchasing them and trying to get out of that situation?
I think we would prefer to find investors that would like to do that and then help set them up on the right path with different grants. So.
Does Main Street search for, what do I want to say? I'm getting old and losing think of, do you search for contractors or people that would be interested in developers that would come in and develop a building? I mean, I don't care whether Columbus, North Vernon, Greenwood, do we put an effort in to find developers to come in?
I wouldn't say that we have done that. I mean, not since, I've started in May. I don't know if they've done that
Okay.
previously. The person that has bought 120 West 2nd Street, we didn't advertise that the building was for sale. It just kind of was word of mouth, and we had reached out to this person. We knew that they would be a good investor for that building and that they would do something with it. So that's kind of why we reached out to him. So. I do want to say that projects that downtown, the grants that we have received already for this year, the applications, I've personally reached out to them to say, hey, our grant cycle is open. You guys would qualify. One of those would be, Spark Shop. We know that they're interested in applying for a grant. Any way that we can help you guys. So any way that we can help downtown.
Is Spark Shop in the downtown?
We
district
moved
or
our
switching?
boundaries
Okay.
back in September. So it includes Spark Shop, the gas station, and the visitor center now.
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
The visitor center.
Oh. Like I said, I guess my overall concern is, in talking with some others that's been around this longer than I have, is there's been a lot of effort going into Main Street projects for over 50 years. And they said it seems like a lot of money's just been thrown down a hole and we haven't got very far. And I don't want us to just keep following the same path if we're ending up in the same place. That sometimes it's good to step back and think way outside the box and maybe come up with a whole different vision. Being in construction myself, there's plenty of projects we've got in the middle of that wish we just started over instead of trying to repair what was there. And I know there's a lot of feelings about historical and about the architecture, and I would be all for keeping that type of aesthetics. But sometimes trying to repair it is just not feasible, and we may get a lot more activity from people wanting to redevelop or come in. And like JJ mentioned, even a contractor, if we could take a section and redo it to where people aren't investing in a building that's just going to be a money pit for them. And some cities have went to the extreme of tearing several buildings down and rebuilding so they don't have the constant influx of money for repairs, but still put a old architecture storefront on them. And it still gives that warm feeling of the original city, but yet it solves a lot of problems for people that don't want to invest in some of the situations we have here in town now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just been kind of my thinking process. I do appreciate what Main Street does. I appreciate the trying to help. I just know that after so long that are we making enough strides that we need to continue down the same path, or do we need to look at some other options? And I don't have the answers to all of those questions, but it's just something I feel that needs to be looked at as we keep looking at increasing or advancing the amount of money that the RDC is supporting it with.
I definitely see the value of restoration of buildings and interiors as well, thinking about like Cape May, New Jersey, Madison, Nashville, Indiana, all these places that they build on their cohesive aesthetic, the feel, and it's, you go in and you have the charm, and you cannot pay to duplicate that these days, at a cost that would be feasible. you know, because materials, as you know, as a construction guy, are far too high. So I don't have an issue with that. My concern is how we're feeling about how much money we have in our fund if we feel like we can, you know, to do the funding now towards Main Street, or if we still need to wait to see how things, you know, how we continue to kind of finesse the funds and see what comes in. That's what my concern is. I don't think that I would be comfortable this year at doing the 350 that we had done before. I think we need to go back to the 200 amount if we do approve funds today. But how are y'all feeling about where we are on the fund?
I tend to agree with Bonnie, you know. It's kinda like the tunnel, and you see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'd rather see sunshine.
Darren, question for you, I guess, before I answer your question, Bonnie. I mean, you said you started that grant process, and I know obviously not having an answer from us would hinder. I mean, there's some money left over from last year. There's
Right.
100 plus the 60 or
Mhm.
so. You know, I mean, so there's you have that money for the grant process. But if we were to wait, like, when would you? I guess what's your timeline for the grant process? When's the deadline, and then when do you usually have answers back to those grantees?
Well, last year it was a different story. I mean, we didn't really get answers out to people until August. But previously it had been grants opened in late January, early February, and answers were out late March and April. So our plan this year is the grant application will close March 16th. The committee will start reviewing those and hopefully have an answer out to them by late March, early April.
Okay, I mean, so a couple things. I mean, as far as what Main Street does, I mean, I think I maybe disagree with Tim as far as I mean, I think that we've made a lot of progress downtown. There's a number of buildings that are a million times better than they were even 10 years ago. You can't turn over a downtown in that long. I mean, I don't know how far back that's gone. I mean, that's just since I've been back in town the last 20 years, but it's markedly different down there now than it was. And there are still obviously some buildings that need some serious
Right.
work. And that's, and part of that is you obviously have to have an owner that wants to
do the
do
work.
something.
Yep.
You can't make them, and you can't make them sell it either, right? I mean, but I do think that there's been a lot of progress down there. So as far as the timing of it, I do have concerns because of the airport, that coming up that we weren't expecting. So delaying a little bit would be, I think, our answer. I mean, if we could have maybe an answer for you in March, where we have a clearer picture at our March meeting, I mean, that would, then give you an idea of, you would have your grants in, and then, what's our March meeting date? I mean, that's going to be the 23rd would be the date. So, I mean, it'd only be a week after, so you'd have a better idea at that point of what what the budget would look like. But that's kind of where my thinking.
From my perspective, we should know as much as we're gonna know by the next redevelopment commission meeting. So we have the request from Main Street. By the next meeting, we should know where we stand financially. I would like to think we could make a decision based on the original request at the next meeting.
Okay.
How does everybody else feel about that? Okay.
You're saying February then?
Yeah. So that'd be the 23rd? Yeah, the 23rd is the same. Yep.
Yeah, 23rd.
Okay. Does that sound like a game plan?
Do you need a motion to table?
You're comfortable with February?
Yeah.
I'm saying that can be a goal.
Okay.
We're not gonna make any decision until we have all the facts, but, we've
possibly February.
That's the goal, yes.
So February's not in stone.
Right.
But I think that even if we
This
can't
is
do,
the first
if
time we've
something,
had to do
if
this
something
in
comes
several
up,
years, so we apologize. You get to experience it the
fine.
first time, but
if something comes up at February where we need an answer to something, I would think we would likely, March would be probably I mean, we could almost surely.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
safer.
Safer, I mean, but that still gets you pretty close to your deadline. So, I mean, I think that hopefully that, is soon enough, but ideally February, but I think March would be a real safe bet
Sure.
to have an answer on that, so.
Great.
Okay. Any other business for Darren? Thank you, Darren.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other miscellaneous business? Not seeing any, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.